Hello there, I'm James and welcome to the new look Rebel based build. On this episode we're going to be creating a scratch build Kitbash speeder for the Smuggler's Room Patreon's speeder challenge. I'm really happy with this, I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's check out the build. We all love playing with toys, right? And believe it or not, as an adult, I still do.
Kenner's new Star Wars Land of the Jawas. Action figures each sold separately.
I just use I'm building a new display for my figures as an excuse. Accessories I buy for my toys now are things like tools, paints and materials. Anything that will enable me to build a new world, to take my toys to the new place. For me, it's about the nostalgia. When I look at my collection, I remember my childhood, and you know how nostalgic I like to be on this show. This build, however, has been an absolute blast. I've learned some new skills. First and foremost, making miniatures. And it opens up a whole new world of materials and tools to play with. The whole concept of kitbashing to me is just so tantalising. I chose these two sets because between them there's some recognisable shapes and one hell of a lot of greebles. We've got small pipes, we've got tracks which I had something planned for, tiny little wheels and many little panels and small details that I knew I could pull together into something interesting. There were some parts that really stood out and I knew instantly what I would use them for. The rest, I was just making this up. This is it, my friends. This is the part that I just lost myself in. In fact, I'm going to stop talking and I'm just going to let you watch. These tracks were one of those pieces I just knew what I was going to do with the minute I saw them. I wanted it to appear like the Jawas had bashed this thing together at full scale and used these tracks in some way to hold everything together. Of course, in universe this wouldn't be a track, it would be some form of cabling or cogs or something like that, but it did the trick just nicely. There were so many of these tiny pieces that an opportunity arose to put these around the intakes on the thrusters. It was a messy job. I was using hot glue everywhere, and I know there's better ways to do this. But hey, I was having fun. great thing about kitbashing is it becomes more than the sum of its parts. Well, my friends, this is, as we know, everybody's favourite part. For kitbashing, primer makes a huge difference in bringing the final shape of the model together. As many of you know, I'm a 3D modeler, which means I'm very accustomed to making CG models inside the PC. And what I love about this primer result is it looks like what we call clay renders. This is the Adding Star Wars section. I called it that because even though the kit bashing was being quite effective, it wasn't necessarily shouting Star Wars. So I started to add those in-universe elements like poor old BB's head and a few other recognisable elements to help tell the narrative of my build. I had the idea that this Jawa team might be those responsible for pulling the armour out of the syle. So I made a hauler device on the back of the speeder. Originally I used string. I didn't like the way that looked. But I remembered having some chain around an old Padme figure, and this worked perfectly. And one thing I learned very quickly at working at this miniature scale is that tiny details are what makes the scale believable. Because this speeder spends most of its time racing across the desert, I chose a very sandy, rusty, metallic, dirty finish. And I used colour pigments to achieve this with a very fine brush, just adding layers upon layers of different colours. I used my standard silver rub to highlight some of the metallic elements and went back and added further detailing. I introduced a dark wash, but I used it very sparingly. I made sure that where oil collected, it was obvious, and I went back and laid over darker colours, which made some of the oil stains appear newer. I would love to tell you that this actually meant something, but I completely made this up. This is the language of the rebel-based build. I couldn't wait to get started on the actual diorama, and watched loads of videos of people carving things out of XPS foam. I didn't really have an idea in my head about how the diorama would look. This was honestly one of those things that I just grabbed a piece of foam and started hacking away. I decided about 10 minutes in that I wanted to have some kind of steps that would lead up to where the speeder would be parked. So I just chipped away at different levels. The process of carving XPS foam is pretty enjoyable, but it also lends itself to being really creative. The stuff is so versatile, so easy to cut, and so easy to sand. Of course, you should be using a face mask because this does generate a lot of dust. What I'm doing here is just carving away very thin layers from the top of the steps. Hopefully, when I started to paint it, this would pick up some of that detail. Over time, as shapes started to form, I did think about the placement of a speeder, and then realised that actually what it needed was a rock tower. Here's a trick I picked up by watching numerous videos online: a silver foil ball. I was able to push it into the foam and roll it over. I got some really great textures. For the painting of the diorama, I just used a couple of different layers of brown, starting with a dark base and then adding 2 more layers of differing shades. I found the lighter I got, the more realistic effect I ended up with, although at first it did look pretty awful. I tried a test piece just to get an idea of what this might look like, because this is new to me. Again, I pushed the scale by adding tiny details, where grime may have collected in those insets in the rock. I also added some of the powder pigment to the crevices. This really sold the grime feel. I went over and applied the same technique on the base. Using some scenic grass and some hot glue, I made little tufts so that they look like bushes sticking out of the landscape. Of course, I hit my 3D program and created some interesting props. I used a cloth modifier to get some realistic drapes, and they printed really well. By now, I was really excited. This was quickly becoming more than the sum of its parts. Well guys, I had a blast making this speeder and I hope you enjoyed watching. I want to say thank you to all of the supporters of my channel and particularly to the patrons. You guys are awesome and I appreciate every single like, comment and penny that you provide to this show. Without you, it really wouldn't go ahead. If you want to check out the kind of things that patrons get to enjoy, such as behind the scenes images, videos, and of course free files, please do check out the link below. Until next time guys, go build something from a galaxy far, far away.